Every year, thousands of students across the country begin their flight training. Whether it's overcoming fear, a career in aviation, or the enjoyment of flying, students start by enrolling in flight school. On the Sunshine Coast, Go Fly Aviation, operated by Damien Wills and his team of instructors, work hard, have fun, and teach everyday people to fulfill their dream of taking flight.
Mike jumped in, we built the fuel tank for the Atlantic, because now we had enough data to know we could fly the Atlantic. And we flew down the coast. We did day flights, no night flying, because the flying over a lot of land and over the Amazon. The Amazon was an amazing thing. So we stayed in Panama City, we filled up that night, or that morning, filled our gas up, we took off, and then we climbed over the Andes. The Andes is about 11,000 feet with all that gas. That really proved what an amazing machine the Sling was. I mean, we were just being amazed, because we were pushing the limits of this aeroplane, this new design of aeroplane with a little 115 horsepower engine, and we were pushing the limits. And that was, we still had a lot of gas getting over the Andes, 11,000 feet, and like through a few clouds, and we literally flew through like where we're, not right over the major peak, but between these peaks. It was amazing. There's green grass up there. Flew through that, and then through the other side into basically IF conditions for the next 2-3 hours. Flew through that, boom, 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 not seeing a thing, and then at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just boom, came out into this amazing sun out over the Amazon jungle. And we flew for an hour or two before we realized that this is an ocean of trees. And when we were there, we thought, well, what's this about deforestation? And you fly and you fly and you fly and think, well, there's so much of it, deforestation. When they've taken a few forests away, you think. There's lots of it. However, we'll get back to that now. But then we suddenly thought, we were so prepared for going down in oceans. We had life raft, we had everything for that. But we suddenly realized we had nothing for jungle. You go down there, you're in these tall trees, and we didn't see, from the Andes, we didn't see until we got right to the outskirts, any human, no road, no boat on a river, no village, no nothing. It is a huge place. I can't wait to do that again. And that was incredible. If we went down there, we were deciding, are we going to pull the parachute? Land on top of the trees and drop through and the parachute's our marker, or try and land on top, and if we drop down, they'll never find us. All these scenarios. Thank goodness we didn't go down. We didn't even have bug spray. And anyway, we eventually got to a place where there are 3 countries that join each other, little village over there, and we landed there. And it was interesting because in the village, the border is inside the village, and villagers would drive around to different countries effectively, and there were just border patrols sitting there watching everyone drive around. It's kind of a weird thing, but we got gas there, which was the color of the water in the rivers. It was brown. It was the one time we got gas. When we took off the next day, it was the first time temperatures went crazy. We landed as soon as we could so that we could have gas and, in fact, we took some of that gas out and put avgas in just to improve the situation. And anyway, fairly uneventful from that across South America to Rio. Rio, we had a nice reception. We had a few parties in Rio and a bit of fun. And then came the big test of the aeroplane. Mike had for a year, since he thought about the 4-seater, he wanted to cross the Atlantic. This is amazing. Mike's eyes are always towards the stars and aiming to the stars, and he's expecting to get to the stars. And came the moment now when we had a few days to prepare this aircraft to fly across the Atlantic, and it was going to be without a tailwind. It would be 33 hours. We could only take about 28, 29 hours of gas in the aircraft. 20, even less, 27 hours of gas. And we, in the actual aircraft, in the tanks available. And so we calculated. And at that stage, when we'd announced that we're going to do this trip, we had a big following on the website. And everyone started saying, all the respected pilots in South Africa started saying, listen, you guys have proved the aeroplane, you've done this. You cannot fly from Rio to Cape Town, such a long flight, in such a small aeroplane, it's not possible. And we'd calculated, Mike had done everything he could to make sure this is going to work and be possible. And eventually, the night before we left, we actually switched off the laptop and cut ties with the world because they were speaking outside of, we were getting nervous. The morning of the crossing, and of course we were full of nerves, and we'd had all these messages from people sort of concerned about our safety.
If we don't get this right,
We're gonna die.
we did.
Tim, a very good and trusted friend of ours, said, when I got married, my father came to me and he said, even though the people in the church are ready, you can still say no. So Jean and Mike, you can still chicken out. But if you want to go, good luck. It's the first time we actually, for dinner, we shared a beer. Normally we'd have a beer or two the night before. We shared a beer, we needed to be sharp. And we had, the night before, filled the plane. Again, now we were much heavier than we'd ever been before. The whole airplane was gas, and it was quite funny because this little fuel bowser had arrived to gas us up a little bit before sunset. And there's a little tractor with a bowser in the back, and I can't remember the figures, but I looked at that and I said to him, is it full? He said, no, not quite. I said, have you got more gas? And he looked at me like I'm mad. He said, no, I'll fill up for you. I said, okay, good. So he filled. The first tank was there to there. The other one, the light was moved, which was there, it was the whole leading edge of the wing. It filled, so just one tank, two tanks. And then we go to the other side, fill those two, then we'd fill the back tank in the back of the wing. So it's 6 fuel tanks, and into that 6 fuel tank, he ran out of gas. So we said, okay, go fetch more. And he where are you guys going? We said, no, we're going to South Africa. What? And he went off, he got gas, and he came back, filled the 6th tank, and he okay, it's done now. We said, no. Opened the door, and we sat inside the back. And it was typical, like a funny movie, because he's filling up, and then we especially left him and just watched him. And he'd be filling, and it would be literally like looking under the plane, and okay, filling some more, and be looking, and he'd be looking, looking at the gauge. Anyway, long story short, he got it filled up. And the undercarriage, we were worried because the undercarriage started doing this. It is much heavier than we'd ever be, much heavier. And then we still got 2 cans, 5-gallon cans, which we filled up as well, which were for our laps. Next morning we get ready to take off, and I mean that night I slept, but now the problem is we could do it number 1 in flight, we couldn't do it number 2, and that was going to be a long flight. So I was at 3 o'clock in the morning, I went for a jog just to stimulate things, so I made sure I didn't have to do that in flight. But so comes this is the big day, the morning of leaving, and we especially didn't have communication with people at home, so we weren't going to get a negative one. We were going. We sent out mails, but we didn't get anything in. And we arranged the plane in such a way, we each had 5 gallons on our lap, because doing the sums, it was just cutting it a little bit too fine. But even with those 5 gallons on our laps, we didn't have 33 hours of fuel. But we knew, Mike had studied the weather, and the reason we were choosing that particular day to leave was because there's a tailwind at a certain altitude, and there's a system south of the south of South Africa that would accelerate us in. So we made a plan. We had these fuel cans on our laps, and we tied up my door on the right-hand side with a rope to a certain height. So if we needed to chuck these out, I could open the door. It wouldn't fly right open, just far enough that I could chuck this off, and then we would chuck out tools and laptops and everything, and just keep food, because that's all we needed to go. We couldn't, anything else. So this whole plan. So we would take off. We climb out of ground effect very quickly. If it wasn't climbing anymore, we chuck the ballast out, keep the gas. Very last thing, we chuck the gas out, but then we would probably land. But anyway, we took off, and this aeroplane amazed us again. The sling, the legend of the sling, was now just roaring. I mean, it was incredible, because we took off, we climbed, and it was amazing. So we set up autopilot climb to be like 50, 100 feet out over the ocean, and we were going to sit in this aeroplane, and we were going home to Cape Town. And it was just amazing. The airplane climbed beautifully, and the Atlantic was a long flight, but it was the easiest ocean crossing we did because we had no bad weather. Now, Mike here was all fresh and he'd checked the weather and no bad weather, it's gonna be fine. I'd heard no bad weather before and I'd sat in storms all night, so every time there's a cloud, I was like, Mike said it's gonna be fine. Anyway, it was fine. We had this very mellow flight across the Atlantic, and it just was long. And eventually we were flying along, and over there in the distance, saw this little Table Mountain. You know Table Mountain, Cliff? And I said, look, and we're like, yeah, hugged each other, and we just waited till they got bigger and bigger and bigger. And an hour or so before Cape Town, the autopilot stopped working. Good time for an autopilot to stop working. Anyway, and we got in, nice reception, and that was the trip.